Cloud. Cool. All right. So, I don't know if any of you were at GopherCon. I can tell you a little bit about the things I learned there. I think what was most relevant to our endeavor was the community day, which was one day before the conference actually started. And my team and I were invited to the Go Contributor Summit, and it's like a meeting where people were like submitting subject of discussion, and then we're creating like little work kind of work groups to have conversations about these topics. And WebAssembly was definitely in high demand. So it was, I think the first round of like 3 topics on WebAssembly. One was the new architecture that that we're implementing. I think Damien, you're involved in.
The WASM 32.
Like, yeah, 32-bit memory addresses for WebAssembly in Go. Another was on Go WASM export, and another one was on the WASI preview 2 or hypothetical WASI preview 2 fork that could come in Go. So on WASM export, I think we had all the right people to discuss this, get together, and we made a lot of progress. We're crafting a proposal now. I think we fleshed out all the kind of open items that were still in flux, and we didn't really have an answer for. So maybe we can get it out for Go 122, but if not, in Go 123, seems very likely that this problem will be resolved. So just quick reminder: Go WASM export is this idea of having a compiler directive that allows developers to declare custom exports in their the WASM module that they build. Because today we can only have the _start exported function, which is limiting for some use case, and especially for the component model use case. Beside this, there were a bunch of discussions on using WASM and Go. So there were Johan, who was one of the maintainers, gave a lightning talk about our implementation of WASI Preview 1 in Go, and like this journey and what we can do with it. Ron Evans, who's one of the authors and maintainers of TinyGo, also gave a presentation on TinyGo that had a big part on WebAssembly and WASI, and the relevance of TinyGo in this ecosystem. And there was also a full talk on using WebAssembly to extend Go applications. So kind of embedding libraries by compiling them to WebAssembly and then calling them from Go, which was a very, very insightful presentation. I wanted to go as in support, because they were mentioning a lot of the work we do on WASI, and it turned out I learned a bunch of stuff myself, so I was super happy to be there. So yeah, definitely a lot of Go plus WASM things at GopherCon. People are interested, they're following what we do, and they're eager to be able to do more with it. If you have any questions on this, happy to answer. Otherwise, we can move on to our other items.
So excitement both from the host and guest side.
Yep.
Cool.
Cool. So Randy is not going to join today. We can quickly do a mention of the work that he's been championing with the WASM tools Go. So this is kind of like the ability to re-implement the backend um, of with BindGen with the purpose of generating Go code. The intent here is that Go has a lot of libraries to help do code generation, and so if we write those in Go, we have access to a lot of tooling out of the box to do this right, instead of having to re-implement these tools in Rust in the existing with BindGen program. So progress has been made. I don't have a lot of visibility yet because with GopherCon in between, I kind of got sidetracked. But I think he should be there in the next instance, and we can dive further into this.
And is that basically where I guess development is happening, sort of for like I guess the new version of with BindGen? It's all happening there.
Yes.
Okay. So if I want to like help out and say like I have hours to spend on this that my manager has approved, that's where I should go.
Yes. Yes.
Then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If work is happening elsewhere, I'm not aware of it. So this is, to my knowledge, the best place to gather and contribute.
So do we know what's happening? So is the work that Joe is doing, is that sort of been superseded by this? Is it happening somewhere else?
I think it's those two efforts are compatible, I want to say. We're still expecting the standard with BindGen tool to emit JSON, like a JSON representation of the WIT files, so that and this is what this work is plugging onto.
Okay. It's kind of a bummer that neither of them are here today.
Joe is still on vacation until next week. He's coming back from China. And so he'll have more insight to share on the next instance.
I will then maybe poke my head into the that JSON package and see what I can help out with then.
Cool. Sounds great. All right.
I have a little question there.
Yes.
For the Go export piece, I am able to use that in TinyGo right now. Is anybody working on upstreaming that in the Go SDK?
Yes, we are. And I say it's the WASM maintainer team for the big Go. Work has been a little sparse. We're still kind of fleshing out all the questions that we had to form the proposal that we're going to submit to the Go team. Once the proposals is accepted, I think we just have to implement it and get it reviewed and merged.
And I don't know, I'm not very up to date on the Go release process, but I believe they typically lock in features ahead of time, several months ahead of time. So and we just released 121, so this would not make it into 122. Is that correct?
I think we have still a couple of weeks or maybe a month to submit proposals. Typically, it's a 6-month release cycle, and they lock in, features 3 months before the release. So you've got like 3 months to submit proposals and pull requests, and CLs, how they call them, and then there's 3 months of finishing up the work that has been accepted, merging everything in, doing like addressing by reports or reverting if we feel like things aren't mature enough to go into the release.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, just thinking about timelines and things. So right now, most of this work then is basically slotted for Q4 here, with bindgen support of JSON artifacts that lets us easily generate bindings. And the bindings generation side is written in Go, so we can use Go native tooling. And I mean, it seems that that work is on track so that we would be able to use it this quarter, which would mean, or not really, not fall quarter, but winter, definitely. Feels good. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the current with bindgen Go effort can definitely target TinyGo as a first consumer, because we have the export infrastructure there. And then as things get ported into Big Go, we can adapt this tool to any change that needs to be made.
So the whip and bindgen tool is blocked on that pending change into the Go standard compiler, right?
I don't think so. Well, for the main Go compiler, yes, it would be, because the component model requires the ability to declare new exports, right? In the with definition, there are exported functions, and so I guess what I was referring to is like we can target the TinyGo syntax until we have an official syntax in the Go language.
Okay, and so there wasn't there was like a workaround, right, with like SIGO or something, right, to get around some of that, or no?
No, SIGO does not help here.
Okay. All right, so everything for the standard Go compiler is waiting on that change.
Yes, WASM export to be available.
Okay.
And I expect the process here would probably be very similar to what happened for Go WASM import, which was part of the 121 release, where TinyGo had it before. Go, the shape that it took in Go was slightly different, and then TinyGo backported the standard Go capabilities after the 121 release. So for export, I expect the shape to be also a little bit different in Big Go, and when that becomes mainstream, like TinyGo would probably backport it to have compatibility across tool chains.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I was gonna say that's what TinyGo ended up doing for the I guess for the WASM import stuff as well, which is we had our way of doing it. The standard Go compiler like had their way, which was kind of our way, but then kind of their own way, and then they did that, and then we backported. And so at the moment, TinyGo supports both, but I think most people have moved over to I guess what Big Go is doing, because it makes our life easier, even though it was a bit of a pain to sort of be playing catch up. But I think it only makes sense for there to be one standard. And I think with TinyGo, we have the flexibility to sort of change things and do sort of like prototyping to make things easier to implement. But I think, yeah, going forward, we in the end, we will be compatible, because that's the only sane thing to do.
So right now, the one thing that I'm most blocked by is this one here, that our current bindings generation doesn't support resources, but we have resourcified all of our WIT interfaces in the WebAssembly org, and then that's also landed everywhere but Go, as far as I'm aware, I think at this point. And so that's a big one that could use somebody to try to bring over the line. But what I don't know is how much that would change if we were to get this JSON outputting and then the new way of writing bindings generation. And yeah, obviously I want this one now, but I also understand if it's better use of resources to wait.
Let's put this on the agenda for the next meeting, if you think that's a fine timeline. Definitely, I think Joe and Randy's input here would be valuable. And when you say it, everyone has it except Go, it's because the current Go generator in with bindgen was not updated, or is because there are questions that are
Exactly.
left unanswered?
As far as I'm aware, it was not updated.
Okay.
If you look at the PR that merged in, you'll see that it updated a lot of places, but Go wasn't one of those.
Okay.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It might work. I don't see a test update, which is
Okay.
terrifying, but you know, it might be fine. Oh no, never mind. It did just get a to do impl.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, it didn't get done. It just will error.
And this to do says
To do impl handle and impl resource.
okay. Yeah, I don't have a lot of visibility into why this work might be blocked. I assume there are some questions that are left unanswered, otherwise it would probably just be execution to get it done.
Yeah, I just think it's hands on just not having an available resource to work on it. Normally Joe would do it, but he's been out in China. And yeah, so basically the resource effort has been something that's been a major work stream for the past, I would say, 2 months.
Okay.
And yeah, just Joe was the only person that you know had the expertise in that space.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say I don't have the expertise yet, but I definitely have the hours to put in to get all of this stuff moving forward.
That would be my biggest wish list item.
Yeah. Well, if you want to dive into it and figure out, what needs to be done, Damien, I think that's probably going to be very, very useful. All right. Last discussion item that I had, I just wanted to bring some visibility to this document that I'm working on. And this was kind of like a follow-up of discussions we had at WasmCon on how to implement the component model in Go. So part of it is the code generation, part of it is infrastructure that kind of the Go tool chain needs to provide. And a big unknown was how the memory management works in the component model and how that can translate to Go. So this is mostly fleshed out. There's a couple of like to-dos left. Some dependencies to Go WASM export as well. Some potential dependencies on the 32-bit architecture. But it might be a little bit of a significant amount of work to get it working. The TLDR is the main challenge is we have a garbage collector here, and the host using the CABI realloc function in the guest to allocate memory needs to play along with the GC. It's made it a little bit more complicated by the fact that we don't have the same size of pointers. So the host is going to assume 32-bit pointers. The guest uses 64-bit pointers. So the way that the host is going to lay out values and pointers in memory isn't going to be able to, like, we can't just interpret it in the guest. We have to kind of rewrite and recreate the data structures. So that's kind of like a dump of all the things we know about this problem, and we're going to try to get a plan in motion. Oh, hey, Randy.
Hey, sorry we're late. Our meeting. Hey, Damien. We're in the SFO office. So since WASMCon, I joined Fastly. So I'm in the office.
Oh,
yeah. So this is Cameron Walters. He was my co-founder at Domainer. So he and I were in this meeting together, and I was like, "Hey, you want to join the Go SIG meeting real quick and check it out?" So yeah. So Gopher had been working on this for a long time. So we've been working on it 15 years. So sorry to catch up. Were you talking about the WASM 32 stuff and the component model integration with awesome. I'm so excited. Yeah. So please, yeah. So just want to say hi.
cool. I'm gonna wrap up this thing on this doc, and then we'll get back to you, Randy. I think there were a couple of questions that you can help answer. So yeah, so regarding the component model, memory management, and how it's going to interact with Go, I think input for this group can be if there are any other language that are facing similar challenges, how do they solve it? But to my knowledge, because everything's based on C in one way or another, like the way that the memory management story is designed is a lot simpler to integrate with malloc and free than it is for Go. So progress on this front as well, but nothing is finalized yet. Right. Randy, if you had any updates on the WASM Tools Go package.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I haven't done a ton of work on it in the last like week and a half because I've been in the just joined Fastly, so it's been like a ramp up here. So hopefully talk to like the folks here, and so I think Fastly's gonna sponsor my work on that open source project, which is cool. I still think my main question, or what actually, one of the things I've learned over the last couple of weeks is what relationship will the WASM like component model tooling that's currently written in Rust have with the Go toolchain, and whether or not that will be a dependency for folks writing Go to emit a valid component WASM file. And then whether or not and where like the lift and lower functionality will be. Are we going to go write that in Go, or are we going to depend on like the Rust toolchain and what's going to be like? I've got some questions there. And having spent a lot of time with like the component model like specification and the ABI specification, I'm still not. I don't think I have a totally like concrete understanding of like how it all ties together, with the goal of making like Go a WASI Preview 2 guest, like fully fledged, regardless of like how we get there. But to more succinctly answer your question, the tooling I've been working on with Joe. I've got it so it can consume the JSON that the WASM tools program, or the WIT bindgen can generate from a WIT file or a set of WIT files, and then basically consume it. And then right now I have it just re-emitting WIT with the goal of basically being like a 1-for-1 representation. So it's like, okay, we're gonna make sure that like the Go representation accurately represents the original WIT representation. So I think from there, generating like reasonable like Go interfaces, I think is relatively straightforward. My question is like where I think the challenge really lies is the API representation and how this ultimately gets, bound to something that the host can understand. And I think that's going to depend on the WASM32 issue in the Golang project, and then Go WASM export. Damien, do you have any like thoughts or like?
So I mean, I've basically been committed with hours to support I guess your work and whatever Joe is doing sort of going forward. So I think, like, yes, we need to figure out what's going on. I don't off the top of my head have like the plan, but obviously, more Go is better Go for everything. So so sorry, that wasn't a particularly good answer. But I know that resourcing this stuff has been an issue, and now there's at least one more person who is like committed to figuring all this out and getting commits in. So
I mean, do you guys like just stacking it up like the sort of WASM 30, basically doing like the 32-bit WASM, like whether it's WASM 32 or just changing like the WASM like Go Arch to 32-bit pointers and then reserving like WASM 64 for future use? And
I don't think we can change the defaults, right? Like I think we will I think it will, WASM 32 will be its own thing. I think we are like, the question is, are we justified in saying, like this WIT bindgen stuff like is only going to work on the 32-bit port, like, and putting more of our support behind that. I don't know. But I mean, that is certainly something we could choose to do depending on the speed with which we get the WASM 32 port into Big Go in a reasonable I guess timeline, and also knowing that Tiny Go like is already a 32-bit port.
Right. Can I ask you a question about that? Because like the WASM port isn't subject to the Go compatibility guarantee right now, and like in your mind.
Yeah, but we don't want to be annoying and like pull the rug out from under people, right? I think changing pointer sizes is enough of a, and basically changing pointer sizes and changing the size of an int like is a pretty big change.
Fair,
And
yeah. Okay.
and so I think, and we don't want to break people unnecessarily. And the WASM 32 stuff, like there's going to be like a whole ton of work that we need to do in order to get that working, right? Because we're changing the size of int, right?
Yeah.
That is kind of the point. It's not, well, we're just doing this thing and we're going to make pointers 32-bit, but that's actually a pretty big thing. So I think probably what the Go team will be happy with is we make a 32-bit port. We can, and I think this is again totally justifiable, say, you know what, we're actually going to put more of our effort into this 32-bit port because this is more in line with what WASM is doing, what all the runtimes are doing, with sort of all this ecosystem kind of tooling with TinyGo, blah 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 blah. And not to say that we're going to let the sort of like weird 64-bit hybrid sort of bit rot, but maybe we can say, you know what, like that is like sort of the initial one, and like if this still works, we're going to support it, we're not going to like break it, but all the cool stuff is actually over here in 32-bit land.
Yeah, I see that.
It's
is there an existing like 32-bit like target architecture for Go that like some like prior art here?
I mean like the 386 port
ARM as well.
right?
Got it.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's going to be fun.
There are other 32-bit architectures, or at least one.
I mean, I think
TinyGo's WASI target is 32 bits. So it's not like, there have been no Go programs built to 32-bit WASM before. There's a bunch, and most production use case of it today are 32 bits.
Yep. I thought that the arguments in favor of 32-bit pointers were pretty sound, particularly from a performance standpoint. So that was pretty compelling. I think it's probably okay if we ultimately, once this lands, then say like all the WASI stuff is going to focus on like the 32-bit as opposed to the weird, as you put it, hybrid 64 32-bit version, and we're just going to kind of ignore that.
Well, so I mean, like one of the other issues that we had with the weird hybrid support is the limited types that can be passed across the like host call boundary. Right. And like if we had only 32-bit pointers, like, and if ints were 32 bits, like that would have been a lot easier, but they're not. They're 64 bits. And so that's why, well, we can't do this. Now we have to be all explicit and blah, 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 blah. And so I think there are many reasons that we want that, but all of those reasons are also why it's actually a really big change. That we can't just say, oh, by the way, when you upgrade to Go 122, all of your ints are now 32 bits instead of 64 bits if you're running on WASI, right? Like that's not going to fly.
Well, I mean, like are there any like 64-bit like hosts out there in the wild that would have even permitted like memory accesses or pointers greater than like a 32-bit anyway? Like
no.
So
because the 64-bit memory in WASM is a totally different, memory space. It doesn't play along this, it's not like, oh, suddenly you have access to 64-bit memory and then you can use it. So
I mean,
it's opt-in.
I mean, I have done much porting of code from various languages to Go and C and whatnot, and like int size, like it's like, oh, int is 32 bits, oh, int is 64 bits, and like I'm thinking off the top of my head, like hash functions and crypto code and all of that stuff. It's like, yeah, it's very nice if you explicitly tag things as int32_t. But a lot of times are like that is the thing that I'm concerned about breaking. Is things that
you're concerned about breaking all the code that's basically using int typed, but assuming it's 64-bit.
Yes.
And it's just gonna like,
and there is so much of that I have found just trying to port stuff over to TinyGo. Right. And it's like, oh, you expect an int to be a 64-bit. That means that you can actually have all these flags stacked, and you do this and you're wrapping over the edge, or all the places where you have a 60. It's like there's so much of that, and that is the stuff that I'm concerned about breaking.
Hopefully none of those assumptions are baked into sort of like exported interfaces that are subject to the compatibility guarantee.
Probably not, because there is the 32-bit port. Right. So any of the times where they had an explicit integer size, they would have tagged it with an integer size. But I know that there are things that I've encountered with WASI-Go. With doing trying to get the WASI port work on TinyGo. Is there are things where it's like, oh, well, this is an int, or this is like a uint pointer, or like there are enough places where we have had to like do some weird things. And so I don't want to break all the guests that are trying to build code that runs in WASI, even if they only ever use 32-bit pointers, like to go back and forth. Like, I don't want to break your application.
Got it.
Because I've now changed the size of an integer.
So how many people other than you are currently working on like the CLs needed to land this into Big Go?
WASM 32? There's basically me and Evan. And I think that's
in San Francisco like this week for HashiConf.
Okay. I have no idea. I have not. I would talk to him at the YZ Go maintainers meeting this afternoon, but I have to take my kid to an appointment, so annoyingly I'm going to miss it.
Oh no, what time is that meeting?
2:30 Pacific.
Okay, cool. Is that closed or can I oh shoot, I can't. I've got a call, never mind. Sorry.
Oh.
Uh,
I'll ask him, Randy, if
Okay.
it's like what do you want to meet him or?
Yeah, I mean, if he's in town, love to chat with him about it because I think that like the sooner we can like get wood behind this arrow and just like get the seals in, then like it can get beat on a bunch and we can land it and go 122.
Yep.
And so, um, yeah. All right, Sheila, are you working on the WASM export stuff or is that also like a collective?
It's definitely collective. I think I spearheaded most of the discussions. We also might have a new pair of hands joining the team to help on this. Don't know if you know Matt Layer, who's at Blind Scale right now.
Is it tail scale or planet scale?
Planet Scale.
Planet Scale, it's the Vitesse people.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, so we met at GopherCon and he kind of volunteered to, come and help on this Go and WASM thing. So the WASM export work would be a good opportunity for him to contribute.
Got it.
Yeah, I've
Is
worked with
that
him a
gonna-
bunch. Like I knew him online, and then he worked for Fastly, and then he left Fastly, and now I'm working with him again.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Is the idea or like right now, like TinyGo has just the bare word export, like in the magic comment. Is there a plan to sort of like prototype this and get this working in TinyGo
Yes.
first as like a POC to
I don't think so. I think the plan would be to document, what works for TinyGo and make a proposal of how we want it to work for Big Go, which probably is going to be very similar, right? We might change the name of the export, magic comment, but that's probably going to be most of the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, and TinyGo in the end, I mentioned this earlier. TinyGo in the end will be patched to accept whatever the sort of like Big Go final proposal result is, so that there is like one true way to do this across compilers.
Yep. And I know that we certainly have plenty of projects in Go that we would love to reposition onto sort of like our compute environment here internally. And so whatever we can do to sort of like drive this forward and get the resources needed like over here internally, like we can do.
Cool. I think I don't think there will be a lot of opportunities to parallelize the WASM export development. It's not a major change in itself, and there's there's prior art with SIGO, so Matt and myself will probably be taking care of the implementation, and the main blocker will we make it fit within the 122 timeline?
Yeah.
Hopefully, I think we have a good shot. We'll discuss this afternoon, but
I mean, I think having it like work both performantly and like cooperate with the Go GC to make like CABI Realic like work would be like ideal. I'm sure you've got that on your mind.
yeah, performance I think is probably not going to be the main concern. Just something we can improve after figuring out the API, right? Like the interfaces and the feature is most important.
Yeah.
There's also going to be like a ceiling on what we can actually do until we have the WASM 32 architecture. So we'll make it work, and then we'll make it fast.
Well, like thankfully there's some parallelization opportunity there with the WASM 32 stuff.
That's a question for Damien.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I
pretty
mean, I
hard
think,
work.
yeah. I think the obvious thing is get it correct and then figure out how to make it fast so that we're not constantly changing the ABI, because that'll just be more work for sort of all the integrators. I don't know. We can go over something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't figured that out yet.
yeah. Okay, cool.
So Randy, is this going to be your focus now at Fastly?
Great question. It's gonna be a big chunk of my focus. I have some, wait, Calvin, are you also at Fastly? Sorry.
No.
No, just me.
Okay.
So we can have a chat. We can have a chat afterwards.
Oh yeah, we should
Randy.
definitely chat afterwards. Yeah. There's a few things like competing for my attention. I'm not gonna lie. You know, Fastly just acquired our company. So we've got there's some, I think we have some like chits to cash in to get some stuff done so we can like reposition like our infrastructure on top of Fastly's, which is going to be a fun project. So we get to both learn the org and the tech stack, in addition to all the open source stuff. And so continuing to maintain all the stuff that we already maintain, and then yeah, but I think that like I have a personal interest, which is aligned with I think the company's interest in ensuring that Go is a first-class citizen in the sort of WebAssembly cinematic universe. And I just, yeah, like I care about it because I think the platform is, you know, WebAssembly in general, and I think WASM I think is something like really like crucial to the sort of like furthering of like more interesting like computing stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna be spending some time on it.
Cool.
Where are you, Calvin? I could go Google you, but I just thought
No, we briefly met at WasmCon,
Right.
at the bowling place or
Oh,
whatever
right. You're working on the
registry.
yes. How's that going?
It's going. We're trying to release a version that we can have some guarantees around it that we won't disrupt usage after that
Yep.
in 10 days. So so a early release of something that we can start having people use, at least the core contributors that are working in the space. So we're trying to get something ahead of WASI Preview 2 so we can publish the WASI Preview 2 stuff to the registry, and then everybody can start relying on some of the tooling.
Got it. That's great. That's awesome. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to talk with you more probably offline about that. And yeah, I've got some questions about like the sort of component registry and how it like
Yeah.
interacts with like existing, say like a Docker like registry, you know, where that infrastructure and you know, like all of that.
Yeah.
Already there.
Maybe just ping me on Zulip, or I guess that's where everybody interacts on Bytecode Alliance stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Will do.
Cool.
There's also I guess the WebAssembly channel on the Go for Slack.
Yep.
All right, friends. We're exhausting our allocated time and topics of discussion. Next instance is in 2 weeks. Joe will be back.
Great.
And he and I will put together the agenda and see you all there.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me crash.
All right. See y'all.
Cheers.